Welcome to Coaching in Session,
where limits end and growth begins.
Hosted by Michael Rearden.
This is your space to challenge the ordinary,
unlock your potential,
and step boldly into your next chapter.
Your mindset journey continues.
If I did a survey, and the survey was, what is the greatest obstacle you have ever faced in your life? What do you think would be the majority of things that people will say? Could it be that most people had to deal with some level of grief in their life, so the loss of a loved one? Maybe it could be money, finances, not having enough. Maybe it could be health, their fitness levels. I mean, we can go all day with different things that could be the possibility of the obstacle. But it's not so much of the obstacle that is the problem. It is that if we're looking at the resistance between the things, the resistance to getting a healthy body, the resistance to having a full bank account, the resistance to having a strong mind, right? All of these ideas of we can get the good stuff, right? Because yes, all the obstacles are stopping us from getting the good stuff. But if we can be resistant to not getting it, where will we be in our life? This idea of resistance is not something where we're thinking of we're resistant to the cold, we're resistant to the heat, we're resistant to poison, we're resistant to gossip. All of these things can be superficial to some degree, because what I'm talking about is that we have invisible barriers within ourselves, within our body, within our mind. When we learn how to shape that, we can see immense growth. I wrote this article here, Overcoming Invisible Barriers, How Inner Resistance Shapes Your Growth. And this article talks about how we can overcome these obstacles or these barriers or these distractions that can be surface level and get so much deeper. It's going to be one of those things where it sounds easy to do, but in the whole term of the implementation, it could be extremely challenging. Now, the other day, I was creating some content. And the content is nothing special, all right? It's just regular content. And as I was creating the content, I was starting to have roadblocks of, but what if this happened or if that happened? I'm starting to think of all the issues that could happen along the way. Because one of the things that I do as a mindset coach is not only telling them where their mind is, but helping them stop some of the pitfalls and the challenges that would be along the way. Now, it can be a good thing if you are doing it with a person, but when you're doing it by yourself, as I was stopping and not going. I was being very meticulous in writing the roadmap, but the progress was slowing down. Because imagine if you were a driver, and I like to use this analogy quite a bit with clients, is you're a driver and there's a person who is trying to race, speed through traffic. And let's say at every given point, you were able to see where the driver could go, where they can have the best benefit for their throttle, meaning that they can zoom by people, they can weave in and out of traffic. And I'm not saying that we should be racing and stuff like that. I'm just saying this idea of we can see it before they can, because in their mind, it's so focused, it's so narrow of let me not crash. I want to go fast. I want to weave in and out of traffic. Versus someone who's calm and not in it, the fight or in the race, they can see it. I don't know if you've ever watched boxing as an example, where the coach is not only looking at their fighter, they're looking at the other fighter. They're saying, hey, they keep dropping their arm when you throw a right. Or when you switch over and you pivot to the left, they drop their arm. Now, the fighter might not recognize it at that point because they're trying not to get hit. They're trying not to get knocked out. They're winded. They're tired. There could be a plethora of issues, but the coach is literally yelling at the fighter, do this, do this, do this, because they're doing that. And if the fighter can just trust the coach, because there's a level of trust there, typically they come out with the W, they come out with the win. This doesn't happen by mistake. This happens by design. We can only see what is right in front of us, but we can't see the whole picture of what is around us. Have you ever looked at the back of your head today? No, unless you get a mirror and you look in another mirror, you're not going to see the back of your head. How do you know you're not going bald, right? You can touch it, I guess. How do you know you don't have lint back there? You don't know. How do you know that someone didn't put gum back there? I guess you can feel it. How do you know there's not lint back there? You're not going to know, right? So it's like you can see what's in front. You can say it looks decent, but then everything else around you, you might not notice. Maybe you have become accustomed to something. For example, I don't know if this is funny or if I should be sharing or not, but I'm going to share it anyway. I was doing quite a bit of flying a couple of months ago, and traveling. I went on one flight, and there was this person that I don't know if they forgot their deodorant or if they just don't wear deodorant generally, because certain people just don't wear deodorant because maybe they have a belief that they shouldn't be wearing it or whatever, but whatever. Well, this person didn't have any deodorant. And I was thinking in my head, do they notice that they smell a certain way? I don't think they do. Because if you think of like your home, for example, when you go into your house, you don't smell your home. You're just like, oh, this is home. You have grown accustomed to that smell. For example, this can happen in an Indian restaurant. I'm not saying nothing bad about Indians. I love them. They're wonderful people. And I'm not even joking. I'm being serious. Like, they're great. This idea of their cooking is very pungent. And I don't say pungent in a bad way. It's rich. The turmeric, the spices, like the 5 spice, all of these things smell delicious, or really good. But when you smell it. So when you go in an Indian restaurant, you go, this smells like an Indian restaurant. Maybe you go into an Italian restaurant, like, oh, this smells like bread. Or a bakery smells like bread. You go into a Mexican spot, right? It smells like Spanish food or something. It's not that you're being a certain way. It's just that you know how something smells. So when you go to someone's house, you could say, oh, it smells like curry, it smells like this, because you have grown, or you might know or be aware of that smell. This is to say that at some point, you just get used to the smell. For example, when my wife cooks, I come in the house. If she cooked like fish or something, or she cooked something, I know what she cooked. I go, oh, you cooked this. Yeah. Okay. Because the smell, right? Not saying that everything that you cook is going to have a smell, but if you're making fresh brownies or cookies in the oven, you're going to smell them. You're going to go, oh, this smells good. That's why they have candles of cake and pie and stuff like that. Cinnamon buns, because people, they feel like it's home or something because they can smell these things. Now, I say all of this in a roundabout way to say that this idea of the things that we subconsciously think about, or even consciously to some level, right, can be a deterrent to us. Because if I'm thinking about, okay, I'm trying to move forward and I'm trying to do the things that I have to do, but I don't notice what I can't see or what I can't wrap my 5 senses around, how can I then? Because resistance is going to be maybe dealing with this idea of relinquishing our senses and then giving them to someone else to understand. Great example of smell, right? Not just the food, but when guys come to me, they will say, hey, I'm looking for a girlfriend or something. I ask, what type of girlfriend do you want, or something along these lines? And they'll say, I want this type of girlfriend. I go, okay, great. And when we're preparing for a date, after we have already done the work with the girl and we made sure she's a good fit and she's not going to be a waste of our time, we make sure we are hygienic, meaning we look the part. Our hair is washed, our body is washed, it's combed. We smell good. We put on deodorant, maybe a spritz of cologne, nothing crazy. We're not trying to overpower. We're just trying to make ourselves pertinent or relevant, meaning, hey, I'm here, okay? And of course, we know that we need to have, I think it's 2 minimum, 3 ideally, of our senses to be there, like on the first date. So, of course, if you look the part, yes, you can be appealing. If you smell the part, great. Now you're really good, right? So then that right there means you're in the, they're okay zone, but I don't know about them zone. And then the third one is going to be basically the tipping point of Maybe you give a hug at the end of the date or a kiss or whatever. Typically, I don't recommend kisses on a first date, but sometimes it happens. And that right there can be the connecting factor, right? You're connected by 3 of your senses. Now, this can be true for anything, not just relationships. It could be about fitness. Think about how you can connect 3 of your senses to fitness or 3 of your senses to your career. What would that look like? Okay, you smell the cubicle or something like that in the area of how your workplace. Maybe you work in a sawmill, so you smell the sawdust. And at some point, you have to ask yourself, do you like the smell of sawdust? And it sounds crazy, but if you don't, then it's going to be a negative. Think of a girl's perfume or the guy's perfume, right? You might not like their perfume. Now, this is to say that, oh, that's superficial. They can change your perfume. But the idea is not that they can change your perfume. It's just that that's the perfume that they chose to be with or to present themselves to you with. And sometimes it's going to be a unique factor to them. Now, maybe they got put on and saying, oh, you need to wear this from a friend, so it's not truly there. And maybe you can bring it up and says, oh, do you know what perfume is? Oh, no, my friend gave it to me or something like that. So then you can have a conversation like that. And then you can focus on the other senses, right? Do you like how they sound? Some people don't like how people sound. I think with podcasting, especially, if you don't like how someone sounds, you're not going to listen to them long term. You're not going to say, whoa, like this person's so annoying. Let me keep listening to it. And there's a couple of people that my wife listened to that I was like, wait, that's kind of annoying. But then I know there's people I listen to that she's like, that's annoying. And she says the same thing to me. So it's just like we have different voices that match with us and don't match with us. Typically, any voice I can adjust to. It's just that sometimes they be talking nonsense and I'm like, I don't want to hear no nonsense. So whatever. But either way, going to this article really quickly, I wanted to point out a couple of things, right? With these invisible barriers is that we don't necessarily know that they're there because they're invisible, of course. But the idea of being aware to when we feel that there's resistance. Okay. Now, I'm going to explain it this way, and then I'm going to present it a different way. If you're in the dark and you're reaching around for something, right? Let's say you go to a wall and you put your hand on the wall. When you're pushing the wall, you can feel some good resistance, right? You can't budge the wall, typically. Okay. If you can, you live in the ghetto or you live in some shambles and you need to get your walls checked. But if you go to a curtain is going to give you some resistance, right? You just use your fingertips. You can feel your fingertips having to work to push the curtain, but you can keep on pushing that curtain until eventually you touch the window. And then now you have true resistance. So there's going to be a soft resistance and then there's going to be a hard resistance. The soft resistance is going to be like that curtain idea. And then the hard resistance is going to be like the wall. Now, the soft resistance in life can be the mind that you have. Okay. It can also be the hard a little bit later, but ideally it's going to be the soft resistance because you can always change how you think. Think of mantras and affirmations. Sometimes you might have a negativity or a bias towards something like it can't be done. And instead of saying that it can't be done, it says it can be done. It can be done. It can be done. It can be done. And now instead of that wall being there of it can't be done, now it becomes the curtain, meaning it is resistance, but it can be moved. And sometimes the idea of just moving things to the left or moving things to the right is enough for you to get by is going to be the key to your success. But most people, they just want to get rid of it all the way, right? They say, I have OCD, I'm uncomfortable with this. And before you know it, they're having a hard time looking at these barriers as something that are ever going to go away. Barriers don't go away. They just get moved. They get placed differently. Now, there are going to be times when you move past so far from those barriers where they're not even relevant anymore. But in front of you, there's going to be new barriers. There's going to be new challenges. There could be new situations that you have to focus on. Now, the resistance that you have for the challenges that you're going to eventually have, if you don't have them already, is that can you be that force that keeps on pushing regardless of how challenging something can be? Because as I said, I was going to get to the wall, right? The hard wall. This wall can be maybe a stopping point for a lot of people, right? reach a dead end. I'm at this wall, I'm at this dead end, I'm out this cliffside. I can't do anything. And I'm very blunt about this. Get the pickaxes, get the dynamite, get the cranes, get the bulldozer, right? Get whatever you have to get in order to knock that sucker down. Just because you have an obstacle in your way or an invisible barrier in your way, it does not mean that it cannot be destroyed. Now, I did mention that you can move certain ones aside. Those are going to be low energy, where you don't have to focus on, okay, this wall right here doesn't have to be destroyed. I'll move you to the side. Think of it as like a friend or like a bad friend. You don't have to destroy your friend, right? Just say move to the side, right? Invisible barriers, right? You're just saying that you're no good for me. I want to grow. And you move all the things that you can. But then sometimes you have to break through. Sometimes this breakthrough can be mindset. Sometimes your mindset is just, again, is fixed. It is not there to be like full of growth, and you need to develop something really quick. Of course, you can give yourself this idea of resistance and eventually building yourself up to something, meaning your resistance to go to the gym or whatever. In the beginning, it sucks. And then in the middle, it sucks. And then the end is fun. It's like, this is fun. Like, I enjoy going to the gym, right? The resistance to go through that beginning of suck and the middle of suck just to get to the end as good. That's life. Where you might get suck and you might get suck and you might get suck and then you get good. Like, I'm talking about real good. Most people, they don't have that resistance. They don't have that determination. They just want something easy. They want something given to them. Because if they don't have to push hard, then yeah, sure, great, I'm happy. But if I have to push hard, now I'm thinking about this in a different way. Well, I want you to have some level of resistance because it makes you stronger. Think of Earth right now. We have gravity. We need gravity. And you might not think you need gravity, but you do. You do. You know why? Because when you go to space for a year, you know what happens to your bones? Start to break down, like the mass on it, right? The muscles and stuff like that, the muscle mass, because you don't have any gravity pushing against you. You don't have to do much work in order for you to move. So guess what? You don't have much resistance. When you're lifting weights, you can have a very light resistance, say 5 pounds, you just do 5 pounds. And maybe you can have a very heavy resistance where you do 50 pounds. Okay. Now we know in order to build muscle mass, we need to challenge ourselves to failure. We need to get to the point where we can do just one or barely one. Not, oh yeah, I can do this all day. Not saying that you're not going to get a good workout. Not saying that you're not going to burn calories. I'm talking about how sometimes resistance can lead to more potent growth. So you have to ask yourself, you might not be a person that wants big muscles. You just want to be a marathon runner, right? So you build up resistance to run on the treadmill. So when your body starts to say, 10 minutes, well, you better stop. You're having a heart attack or whatever. Eventually, you just build up resistance to that idea. And then you get this runner's high. You're just running, you're just cruising, and it's easy, it's smooth. Versus, oh, this is challenging, this is tough, this sucks. We become resistant to the negativity, to giving up, to the challenge, whatever it be, we become resistant to it. Now, becoming resistant is not as easy as, okay, I want to be resistant. Let me be resistant. I am resistant. It's not as easy as much as I wish it could be that. It is not that. Resistance takes time. Sometimes you have to become acclimated to a certain environment for so long, and it could be months, it could be years, it could be a lifetime, maybe even, where you have to be in it in order to become resistant to it. Think of society as an example. Most people are not resistant to the negativities of what society is. They get the trends or the algorithms and they say, well, this is what we have to do now versus what do you want to do now? Now, I'm not saying that we need to be silly with our businesses and things along those lines. I'm saying that sometimes we should be true to ourselves. I think of people who have left very plush jobs in order to pursue something more for themselves. And I'm not saying more meaning more money or maybe even more happiness. Maybe it could be more peace, maybe more joy, but they were looking at their life to be different. And it wasn't just stuck in a corporation. Think of all the guests that we have that were once working for big corporations and now they're not. Now they're working for themselves and they have freedom, they have flexibility. And I believe in life, the best way to live is with flexibility. Because if we're constantly going to find ourselves behind these invisible walls, these invisible barriers, how can we truly say that we can get through some hard points in our life? Resistance is understanding that we can be strong at one point, at one level, at one degree. Think of how sand is, right? Sand can be very brittle. When we add water to it, it has more resistance to it. When we mix it with cement, it has even more resistance to it. So there's a lot to be said about this article here. Overcoming invisible barriers, how inner resistance shapes your growth. It talks about many different things and how we can disguise the resistance at some point as protection, where we become just resistant to our potential. We become resistant to our insecurities. We become resistant to our conditions or our patterns. And when we become resistant in a negative fashion, it stops us from looking at how we can become resistant in a positive fashion. So we have to know the difference. And I talk about in the article the difference between the positive and the negative. But the idea is discomfort is going to be the teacher here, where resistance and comfort can be an issue versus resistance and discomfort. When we are uncomfortable, we are going to build. When we're comfortable, we are going to maybe develop a resistance to even trying. So that could be the negative aspect. It's not bringing us about something good. So we need to change. So at some point, we need to stop lying to ourselves. We need to start being true to ourselves, and we need to say what is what and how it's going to be. Because if we are just resistant to life, and I'm telling you, life moves so quick. It just moves so quick. I was watching some old videos the other month, and I was in high school, 15 and 16 years old. And I'm just thinking, over 15 years had passed. I was like, wow, like how I was, how I thought. And it's just so funny when you are living your life, you don't necessarily see, as I said, all that is around you, right? You see what's in front of you, who you are at the moment. Of course, you change. Of course, you adjust. But there is a resistance. There is a reflection that happens at the end of everything that occurs. So if you are a person that is in a negative resistance right now and it's not positive, it's not bringing you about growth, then reach out to us, revenconcepts.com. Get yourself a consultation, look at how you can become more resilient in the things that are going to be more positive, that are going to be helping you grow versus keep you stagnant or keeping you stuck. Anyone in the world can tell you to be good and do good. But when they tell you that, it is your mission or your decision at the end of the day to either go along with what they say or to continue down your path of destruction. Now, maybe you were on the right path, so you continue on with doing what you're doing. So then that person would just be supporting you. They would be reaffirming what you're already doing. Society doesn't necessarily tell you that you can do more in your day. They just say that there's a lot of things that can be done in a day. So we need to figure out how we can begin to change, how we can change our structure, how we can move the invisible barriers that can be good, that can be bad, and we have to align them appropriately. Some good barriers can be that you block people from your life. You block negative behaviors and attitudes. And then the other negative part of it could be that you are blocking yourself from stopping these people, or you're stopping yourself from allowing certain behaviors in your life. At the end of the day, we can obey our mindset or we can fall victim to our mindset. I will hope that your mindset is one of power, one of mightiness, one of immense power that can break any barrier that you might have or that you will have. Like I said, sometimes the barriers can be daunting. Sometimes the job can be too much. I've had situations when the barriers were too big for myself to handle. I needed assistance, I needed help. And that's when you reach out for help. That's not when you hunker down and you get the pickaxe and the dynamite and you start doing it yourself. Ask for help, ask for support, because there's going to be people who want to break down that same wall that you got because they know something's on the other side. It could be good, it could be more bad, but if you keep breaking the walls, eventually you're going to find something that's truly meaningful.